Hey, player, part two of History of the World as You Know It. uh, we'll see how much longer this is. I don't think it'll be quite as long because we covered a lot of the backstory. That basically, what the first video covered was probably the first, I want to say between like 8 and 9,000 years of history. Uh, that's basically how long it took to kind of recolonize. And keep in mind, I said like some areas are still very rural, still very technologically inept, but there are some areas that have become like population centers. Uh, there wasn't that many wars that broke out as a result of the Edict of Peace, believe it or not. There were conflicts and stuff like that, and certain land is more desirable than others. But then again, like when you're looking for resource wise and survival, like it's more about personal comfort. Like Solarians tended to move to more warm areas like deserts and stuff like that. Humans and Andvari could pretty much go anywhere. Arcadians tended to prefer like a more lush tropical type area. Uh, yeah, stuff like that. Like there was enough room for everybody, and populations expanded. Populations started to intermix to a certain extent too. The Legion were probably the most known for this. Is they were very very strict at first as far as you know being like a pure blood race, but over time like there has been some mixing, and there's still pure bloods out there too. Excuse me. So that takes us up to around 800 years ago. Like I said, each region, each civilization has had its own rulers, some good, some bad. But in general, things have gone pretty well for the planet. Not perfect by any means or anything like that, but something that people started to notice is that the old gods started to make less and less of an appearance. And some people believe like it was through the old gods, like that there was this real tangible connection to this higher power out there, that like people kind of had their needs satiated, like you know that when you died, like your soul was kind of ferried on to the next place by Ori, and like there's a bit of comfort in that. Like I said, you might not be out there living and breathing, but like some people would say like that Ori could channel the spirits of the dead, and you could speak to your relatives that had passed, and like to see that they were at peace and they were like comfortable, stuff like that. So like it kind of took you know it kind of made things a little bit better as far as quality of life went, having these old gods around. But then there were some people who felt like the old gods kind of stifled things, like Oroku basically blocking the passage of the seas, not being able to explore further, see what was out there, that kind of thing. Like, yeah, they weren't universally loved, but by and large, because the population was so small and the landmass so big, there wasn't a lot of conflict that happened. Um, Different groups kind of got insular. Like I said, there's a lot of civilization. There are a lot of cities and stuff like that that were mixed, like where they'd have various races mixed together at the population centers, and some were very insular, where like it was only you'd only find like Solarians in the settlement. Like there was no one else. They didn't welcome anyone else. But like that was kind of par for the course. But there was enough room for everyone kind of to do their own thing if they wanted to. So yeah, we're hitting to that 800-year point. What they noticed over the past, you know, generations, like it would have been 5 to 10 generations at the very least, was that the old gods started to make less and less of an appearance. Like you didn't see them around. People felt like that prayers weren't quite being answered the way they were before. They weren't like readily available to the population, and from that kind of bore strife, unease, what was happening, everything like that. Uh, and out of this, in somewhere around the center of the continent, the new gods started to spring out, and the new gods were, how how do I say this? Okay, so the first one that you kind of know about from history is this being called the First. It's unclear whether he's male or female. It's unclear it's whether or not he or she is one person because they've been around for at least 800 years. And well, some Arcadians can live that long, but yeah, so it's definitely potential to be an Arcadian. Um, yeah, but so this being called the First emerges, and the First, it's kind of in one of the central nation states, and they begin this like slow conquest of the known world. And when I say conquest, like some people have readily joined up to this like I think it's called the New Empire. Yeah, and it's like it basically they said, listen, these are the benefits we provide. We offer a way for your prayers to be heard, and we have the power to back it up, that kind of thing. And the First basically has people associated with him or her that kind of fulfill these duties. What kind of set, there's been other conquerors and stuff like that, like other people who wanted to do, to do things, but like this was more of a uniting, and that kind of goes with the next part of the story is the First somehow, some way managed to cast a edict, and the edict that he or she casted was called the Edict of Unity. What happened is whenever the first nation states were kind of conquered or brought under rule, is the residents were given a choice. They could either join and pledge allegiance to the First, or they could be enslaved. And it's like, okay, well, that sounds kind of sucky and everything like that. The enslavement wasn't like enslavement in the sense where like you're bound to chains or anything like that. It was like a mystical enslavement where you lost who you were. Like the person kind of became a husk of themselves, and then they basically fulfilled the role of like a servant to society. Like they would respond to instruction, but like had no real free will of their own, and like the person they were before was just completely wiped out. That was scary to, like, as you can imagine, that was kind of scary, but it was like an edict that was kind of passed on. It seemed like it was limited to only the areas that they had successfully conquered, so it wasn't like they could just cast it over everywhere. So like there's some sort of stipulation with this edict where they have to have basically gain control over a portion of land to enact this edict. But once they do, like, they give people the choice. And if you choose enslavement, like, people pretty obviously stop choosing enslavement once they realize what happened. Like, there's no freedom or death. Like, it's to some people it's definitely a fate worse than death, to lose everything that you are but still be this husk of a person. In modern times, like, husks aren't a thing that you normally know or see about or anything like that. This was kind of like the early days of the conflict. The empire basically started to spread out from there, from this central point. And their goal was to basically unify the known world. As the empire began to grow, the First kind of needed people to help him, to either serve as like stand-in leaders for an area, to kind of report to him, to kind of create like a network and infrastructure. And the First appointed several commanders, or avatars as they called them. The earliest avatars were war, justice, secrets, peace, wisdom, and fate. These individuals were I guess you could say they make up the new gods, is what it basically amounts to. They're immensely powerful on like a planetary scale, like not even a planetary scale, like on a continental type scale. Not necessarily destructive or anything like that, but just at the very least influential. They have powers beyond what's normally associated with like respective races. Like certain races have powers that are normally associated with them, but these people are definitely above and beyond. They're not always combat related, but they're generally feared and respected in their own right. It is also unclear whether these titles are passed down or that there was an edict in place that allows them to live unnaturally long lives. So like there's people in these avatars that people are pretty convinced that they're like humans and stuff like that, but that they've been around for hundreds of years. Humans just don't live that long. So it's like I said, it's unclear whether or not it's the same person or it's a title that's passed down. These people tend to naturally, like whenever they're in this, like the title of the avatar, they tend to hide their faces, behind masks, these ornate masks. And some people believe the masks are like mystically powered in their own right. Um, so the first and the avatars have remained faceless to the point where if any know their appearance, few if any know their appearance beyond the mask that they wear. Each of these avatars tend to command several dozens of elite agents to carry out their will. They tend to be like like people at the peak of power for their respective races. Like they tend to be super powered, but like not on the level of avatars. And they each tend to serve the kind of theme of the avatar. Like whereas the avatar of justice and his agents kind of make up the court system. Like they kind of oversee the court system to make sure things stay fair and balanced. The avatar of war is basically in charge of the conquest of the continent, and they're constantly expanding the empire. Same way with wisdom is like a keeper of knowledge. Peace is basically the avatar that comes in after an area is conquered and is, if there's any rebuilding that needs done, they oversee that. They try to make sure that there's a smooth transition to the new power, everything like that. Secrets basically deals with information, but like where wisdom is like the old information, that kind of thing. Like wisdom is about secrets is about like undercovering like subterfuge, stuff like that. Yeah. This group, is referred to the new gods, not only because of their conquest, but because of the second edict issue, the Edict of Devotion. Okay, so once you, this is the second edict. When you join the new empire, your voice and a request can be heard no matter what station you occupy. So you can be a city magistrate, you can be a lowly plumber. It doesn't matter. Your voice will be heard. Specifically, there's like a kind of a prayer system that operates where you offer something, whether it's material, whether it's like you can offer, like if you're a super powered being and you have energy, you could maybe offer up like some of your energy or something like that. You basically make an offering. It doesn't have to be like a permanent thing, like you have to lop off a hand or anything like that, but you make an offering. And then like there's a prayer type ritual request that can be made within a certain set of guidelines, and it will be carried out. There's kind of a network of, to call them churches would kind of be an understatement, because it's not like there's like a place of worship or anything like that, but like there's a place where you can go to be heard. There's several rules, however, that go with this, and you cannot, like, it basically kind of a guideline thing to what you can and can't ask for. You cannot directly or indirectly pray to end the life of another subject of the empire. So that means even if someone's doing you wrong, they will not go out there. Your prayer will not be to kill someone. You can ask for the expertise to kill somebody, but like as far as like directly ending someone's life to do that, no, you can't do that. You may not ask for something that will place you above another member of the empire, nor something that has not been earned. So this is kind of tricky. The first one is more about intent. So it's like you can't ask for a rise in your station. Like let's say you're an assistant manager and you want to be the manager. You can't ask for that. Like that's not something that you can get. Like you don't get like free progression out of it. Now you can ask I guess the best way to put it is, like, let's say you would want to become more powerful. You have to earn it. So like you can't ask for more power. You would ask for the best way to progress your power, like to like, and they might actually like send someone out who could train you. things like that. As far as like placing you above another member of the empire, it's not that you can't like progress further than somebody. It's just that you can't be magically moved up. Yeah. So that's kind of like a kind of a fail safe kind of system, so people don't abuse it. And like with this system, like they're with the laws and everything like that, like sometimes they're open to interpretation. Like you might be able to get away with something, you can always ask. Uh, to like most common knowledge, like if a prayer is heard out and it can't be done, or like it goes against like the laws or the spirit of the laws, like you won't get an answer. But like if it is within the spirit, you will definitely get an answer. Like it's kind of crazy to have a voice out there, like a higher voice that will be like, hey, I'll help you out, buddy. Um, Third law is you may not ask for the belongings of someone else. So it's like you can't ask for something that someone else has. Like, oh, this guy has this cool car, I'd love to have that car, let me get it. No, you can't do that. I think those are the big four. Okay, so a request or like this kind of prayer thing requires an initial offering to be heard, and then depending on the magnitude of the request, an additional offering will need to be fulfilled. Um, it's generally done off of good faith. So it's like you make the offering, and then you get it, but then there's a price to pay. It's not necessarily like a nefarious price or anything like that. Like don't think of it as these people were bad and out to get you, like the monkey's claw, like that has the cursed wishes or anything. No, it's nothing like that. Like they sometimes the cost is assigned to you. Sometimes you might be able to negotiate the cost. Like, oh, I'm a private security type guy. Like, I'll lend my services to the Empire for 2 years as far as security goes. But in exchange, like this is the request I made. Like stuff like that happens. Um, so yeah, the second offering can sometimes be service to the Empire for a certain amount of years. That's what I just kind of said. Uh, but yeah, it's something to keep in mind when it comes to your character. Like it's difficult to ask for a specific power, but like asking for an awakening or something like that, like an awakening of any innate abilities, that's something that you can certainly look into, as far as things like that go. But like I said, the bigger the favor, the bigger the cost. And like I said, it's not about like costs that will hurt you, it's about costs that will help the Empire. And like I said, service is a very common one. You know, it's like, we scratch your back, you scratch ours kind of thing. But yeah, like I said, some things you'll get, some things you won't. You can always ask, like there's no penalty for asking or anything like that. Just the initial offering that you have to offer for your prayer to be heard. Okay. So the new empire, the conquest of the unifying the world has been a very slow process. In each new area that's been absorbed, there's been time taken afterwards to rebuild before moving on to the next. So this conquest has been kind of a mixed bag, where some lands, when it gets to them, they say, listen, you know, we're going to fight you. Like, we're not going to go willing to this. And, things are kind of laid waste to, and there's a rebuilding process. Sometimes lands are like, yeah, listen, we don't want any part of that. Like, we agree, we accept your terms. And then there's still a rebuilding process to make things better. Like, some like very rural areas might not have access to like a good like water and sewage network. Like, the Empire takes care of that. Like, they're there to make things better. And like I said, whether or not they're the good guys or the bad guys, like it's not a very clear cut thing. Like, yeah, like they've killed a lot of people in this conquest, but they've also, made things better for some other people. Yeah, so what happens is, like each area that's they basically kind of focus on a specific area, conquer that, and then focus on rebuilding it. Once it's done, then their army kind of moves on to the next place. It's not necessarily like the next closest place, so like, some people, like some groups will take time to try to fortify and everything like that, but you never know where this army's going to go. But it's been a slow process. Currently, as of today, around 65% of the world falls under the rule of the first. I said, some of the lands have simply surrendered and joined without bloodshed. Others have waged long, drawn-out wars. But to this point, the new empire hasn't known defeat. They've had like setbacks and they've lost battles, but like they haven't failed to conquer an area they've set out to conquer. People under the rule of the new gods are largely free to go about their business as usual, except in the case of magic users and those with special and exemplary powers. So this is something to keep in mind. While not stripped of freedom, they tend to be cultivated to the ranks, to join the ranks of the new gods, in what is usually a prestigious and well-paid position, depending on their talent. So basically, superpowered beings tend to be like, you can't go out there and be like a freelance superpowered being. Like, you tend to be in service of the empire in some way. It's like, it's kind of like you get to operate with like discretion and everything like that, but like you'll usually be given kind of a job that best befits your talents. Like if you're some dude who can go out there and heal people, like, you know, you won't just have like a little shop you set up and let you heal people. Like, no, the empire will come to you and say, listen, you know, use your talents for us. Like, there's, you know, we'll point you in the best areas where you can do the most good, and you'll have a comfortable lifestyle out of it. And magic is kind of the same way, only a little bit more strict. Like, practicing magic freely without like knowledge of the empire, like the empire will usually, it's not like that you're like constantly under their thumb. It's more like the empire will bring you in, you'll have like an indoctrination type class thing that might, you know, like it takes, you know, it's not like oh, it takes 6 weeks or anything like that. It's usually like for the career of your schooling career, which still exists from like, you know, elementary education up through high school and college. Like, so like part, you know, you might have special classes that go with magic using, but like there's also a bit of, you know, rules and regulations when it comes to it. Like, you can't be out there like smiting people left and right, killing them and stuff like that. And, you know, you can. There are villains out there who do that. Like, there are the villains of the empire, I should say, who out there do that, and they are, you know, hunted down accordingly and punished. Yeah. So they're not stripped of freedom or anything like that. The motto for this is kind of like on the political side, and as far as like how the empire goes and supports itself, the motto for taxation of the new empire is give so that your neighbor will not starve, give so that those in need will no longer want, and give so that we may push forward and bring peace, prosperity, and order to the world. So often taxes are taken in the form of resources more so than currency, like food, lumber, minerals, etc., or finished goods, you know, like actual products. And taxes are largely done by regions rather than individuals. So it's not like you're expected, you know, to pay X amount of your income or anything like that. It's more, if you're a region that's rich in lumber and produces like a lot of like lumber and like wood type goods, it's like they'll basically set an amount for you that you have to pay out of like finished goods or something like that, like a goal that you have to hit. And, you know, if you're the town the town what's it called, brewmaster, you know, it's like you might contribute a couple barrels to the cause and stuff like that, but like, you know, you're not out there paying out of your pocket, that kind of thing. And it's kind of a place by place thing. And as for most people, as far as taxes go, like, it's, you know, if you're in support of the empire, they seem pretty fair. If you're kind of against the empire, then you're like, yeah, they're taking stuff that we earn, but like, it's not like the empire leaves you high and dry and starving. And, you know, they seem, most, like I said, they have a decent approval rating, I guess is the way to look at it when it comes to taxes. Like, taxes usually, like, they make things better, and taxes from other places tend to make your lives better. Like, if you're an area that makes like a lot of weapons, or if you're an area that like needs weapons and stuff to like defend themselves against whatever's out there to hunt or to do anything like that. Like let's say metal tools, but you don't have like any minerals. Is like you basically have access to a store of them from like another place like that produces them. So it's like it's not like you have to like you have to be gutted because you lack that resource as far as uh, you don't not got gouged, I guess, like price gouged for it. Like it's no it's a very fair system, and they kind of leave room for personal advancement, but also like there's no one falls below a certain level, so it's kind of like a mix of like a capitalism light kind of thing. Yeah, so and like I said, as far as like taxes go, like they're more of a regional thing, like where a region will have a goals that they basically are set and made. Um, it's not like each person, like you don't pay like 33% of your income or anything like that. That gets kind of tricky, but like there's people in the usually in towns in the empire, like even the small towns that kind of are like representatives of the empire, and they're usually one of like the representative of the new gods, whether it's justice or peace. I think it usually falls under that they kind of set the standards. They look at what people produce. You keep an eye on it, and yeah, like I said, there's dishonesty and corruption and stuff like that. They try to weed it out, but people are who they are. The last bit, kind of like and this is like I said, 65% brings us up to the current day. This conquest has taken 800 years so far to hit the 65%. So if you fall outside the new empire, like you might not see the conquest of your lands for generations to come. Like it might be hundreds of years. It could be tomorrow. You don't know. But yeah, and like I said, it's something where the further away you are from the empire, the longer it will take, because they always tend to stay connected to the empire. It's like they don't conquer an area that's like they don't like do like a patchwork kind of thing. It's like no, it keeps spreading as like an organic mass outwards. Um, so that's something to keep in mind. You'll probably have the choice of whether you want to start as a member of the new empire or as the freelance. Uh, Something to note, like with the freelance vary widely as far as their condition goes. Some are really prosperous, some are wealthier than like the wealthiest cities of the new empire. Some are pretty terrible places to live. Like it's whereas the new empire tends to be more of like a static, it has its highs and lows, but like it's not like the abject poverty or the opulence wealth. Like it kind of falls in the middle much more. Um, yeah, so like the free lands can be good, bad, or they can be middle ground too. Um, but you'll probably have the choice of starting where you want to start. It'll depend on probably partially on the race that you pick. Like there's some races that are isolated, some that aren't. But yeah, other than that, it'll be like a coin flip if you leave it up to the DM. Yeah, so that kind of covers, and like I said, the data. This is kind of the broad overview. Like the day-to-day life will depend on your race and what kind of character you make. So that doesn't cover that. The other big thing as far as the world goes is the biggest form of sport and entertainment, I would say, is something called the Tournament of Legends, and it is like this. It's kind of like football. Like there's a season for it, but it covers like most of the year. Uh, the Tournament of Legends is an annual tournament held for students of the Legendary Masters. If you've looked at the character creation or in the store, there are these legendary techniques. That's usually who's usually the member of this tournament is like there's these students of these legendary masters, and each master can have two students. Usually one slot is reserved for a PC player character, and then there's usually a slot left open for there's usually an NPC. Some masters don't have any students. Some masters have two already, so those things are unavailable. Yeah, but it's kind of like there's these lesser tournaments held throughout the year, and it kind of builds up to the championship tournament. Uh, it's kind of a it's kind of like a way to show off like the skill and ability of each school, and like some schools just don't participate. Like, and if you're in a school that doesn't participate, you might be able to. It just might be a thing where the current master and the current student don't wish to participate. Uh, Beyond that, the Tournament of Legends isn't exclusive to members of Legendary Techniques. It's just they tend to be like they tend to be like the all stars of it. There are lesser tournaments sprinkled around, and there are tournaments that exist inside that, like the New Empire has like hosts the finals for the Tournament of Champions, but there are lesser tournaments that exist all around the New Empire, and there are also lesser tournaments that exist outside in the Freelands. It's kind of like the sport of the planet in a sense, whether you're a New Empire or not. And people from the Freelands, they are welcome into the New Empire, so it's like you could travel to the finals and then and then leave. Like, it's not like, hey, while you're here, we're going to conquer you or anything like that. No, it's nothing like that. You could travel into what you may perceive as hostile territory, and as far as people know, they've been doing it for generations. That they travel to see the championships, they get some food, and they leave. Uh, but yeah, like outside, like in the Freelands, there's lesser tournaments as well, and these tend to be made up. Sometimes there's new masters out in the Freelands, and yeah, the lesser tournaments are made up of just people who are superpowered beings. Like, they're not necessarily a legendary master. Now, these people can make the tournament finals. It just tends to be very difficult and kind of a rare occurrence. Not unheard of, not to the point where it's like, oh, this is so surprising, but it's like, oh, seeing someone in the finals, like, oh wow, this guy must be kind of nice to be able to make it here. So there's a lot of emphasis on like the superpowered beings on this planet. Like, it's kind of like, if you want to be a sports star, if you want to be a superstar, like, this is the path you want to take. Like, this is the route you want to be on. I think at least the last five, I'll have to look back and check. The last five tournaments have been won by this guy who uses the Grand Slam technique, is what it's called, and his name is Kincaid, and he's kind of like a legend at this point. Like, the dude is apparently pretty nice when it comes to it. Again, your character may or may not know anything about this, but this is just something, like, this is kind of general knowledge that can be out there and easily accessed if you were to ask. But yeah, like, there's like Coliseum type stadiums, kind of sprinkled around. Like, towns that have these that attract the tournaments are awesome. There's like like they get a lot of revenue from it. Like, people come from far and wide to watch these things. It's not really a blood sport. Like, some of the ones in the Freelands can be a little rough, and they can be like life or death matches. But inside the Empire, it's not. It's very much frowned upon for it to be like a lethal outcome. It's more of a test of skill than it is a life or death match. And like the general premise behind it, especially like in the education process leading up to it, is skill is knowing when you can go out and when you can hold, or when to hold back, and like how much to apply to a certain situation. So just going out there and one-shotting someone is killing them like that. That's not the way that's not in the spirit of the tournament. You're not exactly clear on the rules and penalties if someone kills someone, because it doesn't happen often, at least not in the definitely not in the Empire and the Freelands. Like, the rules can be a little bit more loose, but there is like an overarching set of rules. With that said, there is like, this takes up a good part of culture when it comes to like education. Like, if you happen to be one of those superpowered beings, like, there's usually courses and classes that you can take to enter in to be like to enter this tournament. They have like kids versions of it and stuff like that, where like they usually don't make it to any kind of finals or anything like that, but like there's kind of like a kids cup for it, where you get to see like the up and comers and stuff like that. It's some people like that better than they like the pro leagues, that kind of thing. And like, then there's like the college league, which would be the equivalent of a college league, where it's like, it's not like the professionals, like the highest end, but it's like the people who have potential but are also like decently fully developed. So it's kind of like this very big part of culture and society, and yeah, it tends to be more combat focused than anything else. So like if you're a healer or something like that, you might be kind of screwed over unless you can heal yourself and fight really well. But like I said, it's not something you have to take part in. It's not something, even if you make, like, if you make a superpowered character, that you have to have any interest in. But it's just like it's a big part of culture and society. Like to be able to fight your way up to the Tournament of Legends, and to win it is kind of like you're set for life, that kind of thing, where uh, you know fame and glory and all that other stuff, like your name goes down in the books, kind of thing. And uh, and it, there's not, it's one of those ones where I don't think the prize money, I have to look, I don't think the prize money is like overwhelming or anything like that, but you're basically afforded a comfortable, a beyond comfortable living. And if you enter yourself as a like professional, and like if you're at like the highest levels of this, that's basically what you do for a living. Like that, you can have another job if you want, but like you don't need another job. Like this kind of fills it. So like if you want to be like the tournament fighter, like that's definitely a path to go. Um, is there anything else like culturally that's big? I think that kind of like brings us up to where we are. Like like I said, the old gods have been largely quiet. Some people still like report like isolated instances of more of them being reached out in like dream states, as opposed to actually seeing like the Titan avatars. Um, the new gods are out there doing their things. If you live in the Empire, you got some prayers you want answered, you go ahead and ask them. Uh, there's not currently a military campaign going. I think they're in a rebuilding process of a section of land, which, again, you don't need to know because this is more general information. If it's your land, whenever you make your character, then it'll be a lot more important. Or if it's next to you, you can go from there. But yeah, we'll cut it out there, and we'll call it.